Over 100 species are already threatened by extinction thanks to this plastic pollution. And also it becomes more hazardous over time. So all these large objects which right now float out there, it's about 90% and 97% of the plastic, that will all fragment down into these small and dangerous microplastics over the next few decades.
24-year-old Dutch entrepreneur Boyan Slat is testing out a plan to literally scoop up the biggest gyre of garbage in the ocean. Slat is targeting what's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, a swirling system of trash twice the size of Texas. The group he founded, called the Ocean Cleanup, devised an invention that uses 600-meter-long pipes that form the shape of a U, and they hope it'll catch and corral the plastic right out of the water. Well, let's ask Sharon George, a lecturer specialising in environmental sustainability and green technology at Keele University, what she thinks of this. Sharon, is this a good idea?
I think it's a brilliant idea to get plastics out of the ocean. What's concerning, though, is that this invention, if it works, if they roll it out more, we'll get 8,000 tonnes a year of plastics out of the ocean, which is great news. If we stop putting plastic into the ocean, at the moment we're putting plastic into the ocean at a rate of about 8 million tonnes a year, and that's, you can see the maths there.
Right.
This needs to stop.
So this is basically like wiping your shoes when you really need a bath.
Yeah, it's like having the taps on full while the everything's flooding. And, unless we stop the tide of plastic hitting the oceans in the first place, that's really where we need to tackle the problem. That said, this plastic can't stay there. It's going to get into the environment, it's going to break down. We're finding plastics everywhere now, and it needs to come out. So this is a good idea if it's done coupled with other techniques as well to stop this massive tide of plastics in our environment.
And of course, we still don't know if it will work. From what you know and from what you've read, do you think it will work? Even though, as you say, it's sort of the tip of the iceberg here, or a drop in the ocean, excuse that comparison. It might not work. So are you skeptical?
I think it'll work. I'm not sure about whether it's going to be, an amazing, the technique that we all use, but it's a pioneering project. And I think there'll be important lessons to be learned from this project. I think some of the fears that we have are that this project might also be damaging to the environment. When you put something in the water like that, things like plankton attach to it, and that can then attract other wildlife to it. The fear is that when this plastic is then fished out of the water, that this wildlife will be also fished out of the water with that plastic. Right. I don't think that we have techniques to stop that happening.
Right. So corralling all of that plastic might actually harm marine life. I mean, and this is, we're going to be putting it to the test, I guess, to see whether Boyan Slat's idea actually works. Just stepping back for a second, looking at human psychology, is it potentially dangerous, given that if somebody's cleaning things up now, you become more complacent and you think, well, somebody's going to clean it up, so I can continue to live as I was living?
I think to some extent the opposite is true. I think it's such a big problem that if people feel powerless, that nothing is being done, then we give up. Whereas I think projects like this give us hope to carry on and keep protecting our environment. And I think this is a flagship project, and we don't just need to look at this project in isolation. We need more ways to fish this plastic out of our environment and to stop it getting in there in the first place.
No disrespect to the guy, he's 24 years old and this is brilliant, right? But the first time I came across this story, I thought, well, why hasn't somebody else tried something similar? Or why haven't big institutions tried to tackle this properly? Why is that? Yeah,
I think it is a kind of drop, literally a drop in the ocean. Yeah, it is a small contribution and it's incredibly expensive. But with our latest, there's a massive public concern going on at the moment. That there was a program, Blue Planet, and people saw the impact of this plastic on our environment, and people have got angry about this. People go to the supermarket and realise how impossible it is to avoid plastics now in our everyday lives, and we're feeling powerless to do anything about it. Projects like this give us hope, but until now there hasn't been that public united anger about this issue and the money. So all this publicity, all of this has come together at the right time to make this possible.
Right. My 5-year-old daughter hasn't seen Blue Planet. If she asks me, Dad, why shouldn't we use plastic bags? What should I tell her?
Well, there's the plastic, things like plastic. Plastic is a great material, Plastic keeps our food from getting contaminated. It stops microbacteria attacking our food. But the thing is, once made, this plastic can last hundreds of years. And if we have a material that we're going to have that lasts hundreds of years, if we're not going to use it for hundreds of years, we shouldn't be making it. If we're not going to hand it down to our grandchildren, we shouldn't be using it. More than 50% of the plastic in the ocean is single use. And that is an irresponsible abuse of our planet.
And just for absolute clarity, if somebody doesn't know what it's doing to the oceans and the fish, what is that plastic doing to the natural habitats?
Well,
the
trouble with the plastic is it doesn't just stay there, it moves around, and it'll sit on the top of the ocean and it'll get eaten by seabirds. Most seabirds now have ingested plastic. When that plastic gets into the gut of the animal, it stops it absorbing real food, so it's not going to be as healthy, so it won't breed as well, and it feeds this food to its young, and that then propagates. So we have a situation where wildlife is being damaged, but then it breaks up and it gets down into the water column and it gets ingested by smaller and smaller animals. We know this stuff is in our food chain right now. So this is something that won't wait. This plastic is in our ocean now, and the longer it's there, it's breaking up into smaller and smaller fragments and getting into our food chain. Mm-hmm. This is becoming urgent.
Right, Sharon, why haven't current attempts at recycling worked?
Well, there's several reasons for that. There's plastic is easy to recycle if you've got one material that is easy to maybe melt down or chop up into and reprocess into another plastic that can be used. But a lot of materials are what we call mixed material. So you have maybe, an example of that are the takeaway coffee cups, where you have a cardboard outer but then a plastic inner bit, or you have a foil lining. Those materials are incredibly hard to recycle. And those materials now, we've been exporting these materials to countries that take this material and then make this stuff disappear. This stuff doesn't disappear. It gets into the environment and it pollutes our environment. So these mixed materials are a problem to deal with, but also just the amount. So while we haven't got those systems at the moment to take these types of material, we're still producing more and more and more plastics, even though our ability to recycle the types of material and in the bulk of material that we've got, it's just not there at the moment.
Okay, well, we're making a mess of our planet, and somebody's trying to, solve it in some small way, and I guess we need to commend him for that. We'll see if the Great Pacific Garbage Patch can be cleaned up. Sharon George, we're out of time, but it's been good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers.